Oh,
Hello!
wow. Sarah, what are we doing here right now?
We've got another Tuesday Tips with the Goldbergs at 2.
Wonderful. Sarah, a couple weeks ago for Tuesday Tips at 2 with the Goldbergs, you gave us a wonderful Tuesday tip as to what private individuals should do to deal with a potential ICE raid or interaction with ICE officers. You promised us at the time that you might bring up what a business could do to deal with an ICE raid, ICE interaction, etc. Care to expand on that?
Sure, Danny.
Thanks, Sarah.
So let me touch on that. Like Danny said, last time I spoke about how an individual would have to deal with an ICE officer showing up at their doorstep. Today I'm going to talk about what employers could do to protect themselves if they're faced with an ICE investigation. So back to what ICE means. ICE is Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. They also not only obtain individuals, apprehend individuals for deportation purposes, they also will review employers and whether they are hiring workers that are lawfully eligible to work in the United States. So one thing that we have as a law is that an employer has the duty to review their employees' work eligibility. If they knowingly hire an individual that doesn't have proper authorization to work in the United States, they could be held liable not only with financial fines, but also criminal implications. Yes.
Oh.
There's actually a story about how the United States hired a particular construction company to build the border wall between the United States and Mexico around the Arizona border. And apparently that construction company building the wall knowingly hired employees without work authorization, and the employer was faced not only with financial fines, but also had some criminal implications put on them. Can you believe that?
Ironic and awkward.
Yes. So let's talk about that.
Please.
What happens now is that under the Trump administration and previously under Obama administration, employers were faced with thousands were issued ICE audits. The audits were to request that ICE be given a complete file of all the employees that were working for the company and also information on what was produced for each employee to verify that the employer is actually doing their job in making sure they have lawful employees working for them. I just said employee a lot. But one thing that I'll tell employers is first, you need to have an HR policy. Many, especially small businesses, they're thrown into trying to figure out how to do a business, and they haven't even figured out all the different things that are required on the HR side. So one is to have an HR policy. Whenever you have a new hire, you need to make sure that the new employee is verified as having proper authorization to work in the United States. Just because someone, for example, might speak English and says that they're from the United States, that doesn't mean that they have proper documentation to show they can actually work here. So that needs to be done, and it's done through a Form I-9.
Aha.
Another thing that an HR individual needs to have in place is what will be the policy for maintaining all of the records of the employees. Do you keep all records of the employees, or do you only keep what's called a Form I-9 on file? But there needs to be consistency. Sometimes employers will do one thing for one new hire and something different for a different new hire. So it's always important to have consistency with the files. A third thing is what happens if the employer is faced with an ICE audit or an ICE raid, where surprisingly ICE will show up at the employer's place of work and say, I need to see your documents right now. So with that, they need to have a policy in place with a go-to person of who will represent the company in communicating with ICE. Also, it's important to have legal counsel involved, because if you're facing high fines or possible criminal implications, it's always important to have an attorney on board. And those are some of the points I would say are important for an employer to think about and have in place. So 1, HR policy. 2, keep a file consistent before new hires. 3, have a go-to person on the HR side and with legal counsel to make sure that the employer is protected.
Okay, very good. And with that, Sarah, I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year. It was Rosh Hashanah last week, and I did not acknowledge it in my pre-recorded video. So I'm going to wish everyone a wonderful and a sweet new year, filled with all the blessings that you want and you need. More importantly than that, though, I'm going to wish the city of Houston, Texas, another World Series championship at the hands of the Astros.
Go team!
L'chaim.
L'chaim!